My mother told my 7-year-old daughter she wasn't welcome at Christmas because her handmade dress was too different. I am the one who pays for my mother's health insurance. That afternoon, I quietly canceled the plan. 2 weeks later, my phone showed 41 missed calls. This is a story about the quiet power shift in a modern family, where the child becomes the parent's lifeline. For years, I was the reliable daughter, the one who handled the practical things. But when my mother drew a line through my daughter's name, she didn't realize she was cutting the very thread I was holding for her. That decision in December didn't come from nowhere. It was the final piece of a pattern built over a lifetime, a pattern that started with how she saw me. Growing up, I was the easy child, the one who didn't need fancy things, who understood that money was tight, who learned to sew her own Halloween costume while my younger sister got the store-bought princess gown. My mother had a word for me that sounded like a compliment but felt like a sentence. Independent. It meant I got practical gifts, a winter coat a size too big to last 2 seasons, sturdy shoes for school. My sister got the sparkly jewelry, the concert tickets, the experiences. When I asked why it was different, my mother would smile her tight smile and say, "You don't need all that flash. You're sensible. She's more delicate." Delicate meant her feelings were fragile. Sensible meant mine didn't count. The division wasn't just about things. It was about attention, about belief. My sister's dreams were possibilities to be funded. My dreams were fantasies to be managed. When I wanted to take art classes, it was too expensive, too impractical. When she wanted horseback riding lessons, suddenly a budget was found. I watched my mother lean into my sister's life, planning, cheering, investing. With me, she leaned back. My achievements were met with a nod, a simple good job, before the conversation pivoted back to whatever crisis or excitement my sister was having. I learned to shrink my needs, to celebrate my own wins quietly, to understand that in the economy of my family's affection, I had a different, lower currency. I moved out at 19, worked 2 jobs through community college, and built a life on that independence they'd assigned me. I became the stable one, the one with a sensible job in medical billing, the one who remembered birthdays and called every Sunday. My sister's life was a series of dramatic turns, passionate careers that fizzled, relationships that collapsed, each requiring emergency funds and emotional rescue missions from my parents. I was the backdrop, the steady landscape against which her drama played out, and I accepted it. That was just our family's shape. Then I had my daughter, Lily. She came into the world with this bright, unapologetic spark. She loved bold colors, mismatched patterns, and by the age of 5, she declared she would only wear clothes she helped make. We spent weekends at the fabric store, her small hands choosing vibrant florals next to dinosaur prints. She'd sit beside me at the sewing machine, her little feet swinging, narrating the story of the dress we were creating. To me, it was pure magic. To my mother, it was a problem. The comments started small. "Couldn't you just buy her a nice dress from the department store? One that matches?" Lily would twirl in her latest creation, a patchwork skirt of emerald green and sunflower yellow, beaming. My mother's smile wouldn't reach her eyes. "She looks creative," she'd say, the word dripping with unspoken judgment. Creative meant not normal. Different meant wrong. The first real fracture happened at the family Thanksgiving when Lily was 6. My mother had bought matching plaid dresses for all the granddaughters. There were 4 of them. Lily took one look at the stiff, scratchy fabric and shook her head. "It doesn't have any pockets," she said, perfectly reasonably. "And the colors are sleepy." My sister's daughters, already in their identical dresses, looked at Lily in her rainbow-striped tunic and leggings like she was from another planet. My mother's face tightened. "It's about tradition, Lily, about looking like a family." Lily, with the devastating clarity of a child, replied, "We are a family. Our clothes don't make us that." The table went quiet. My mother never bought Lily a dress again. Instead, she began to exclude her, subtly at first. Photos from family outings would appear online, and Lily would be on the edge or cut out slightly. My mother would plan baking days with the granddaughters, but the timing would always conflict with Lily's art class. When I pointed it out, I was being sensitive. I was causing drama. I was, and this was her favorite word, misinterpreting. The pressure wasn't just emotional, it was financial. 3 years ago, my father passed away unexpectedly. His life insurance was minimal. My mother, who had never worked outside the home, was left with a small social security check and a mortgage. My sister, between ventures, was financially underwater herself. The responsibility fell to me, the sensible one, the independent one. I took over the mortgage payments. I handled the utility bills. And most significantly, I added her to my employer-sponsored health insurance plan. It was a logical solution. I had the stable job, the good benefits. It cost me an extra $400 a month, but she was my mother. It's what you do. But the dynamic shifted with that signature on the enrollment form. I was no longer just the reliable daughter. I was the keeper of the gate. Her access to doctors, to medication, to security in her fragile health now flowed through me. She never thanked me, not once. It was treated as a natural transaction, the sensible child finally using her sensibility for the family's benefit. The unspoken expectation was that my support was limitless, and her criticism of my life and of Lily was equally her right. Then came the Christmas email. It was the first week of December. The subject line read, "Family Christmas Eve Plans." It was a mass email to the whole family. I opened it, expecting the usual logistics. Instead, it was a detailed itinerary, arrival times for my sister's family, menu requests for the grandchildren, a note that matching pajamas would be provided for all the kids. My breath caught. Then I saw the line at the bottom, a single sentence buried after the directions about parking. "For those with alternative traditions, we understand and will miss you this year." I read it 5 times, alternative traditions. Lily and I had no alternative tradition. We planned to be there. I called my mother, my hand trembling. Her voice was calm, rehearsed. "Oh, honey, with Lily's unique style, I just thought she might feel more comfortable in her own space this year. All the other girls will be in their matching pajamas. I wouldn't want her to feel out of place." I was speechless. She was disinviting a 7-year-old because of her pajamas, because of the clothes she loved. "She's 7, I finally whispered. "She's your granddaughter." My mother sighed, the long-suffering sigh I knew so well. "This is why I sent the email. I knew you'd take it the wrong way. It's not about exclusion. It's about harmony, about the family picture." The family picture. That was the core of it. Lily, in her dinosaur and unicorn print pajamas, would ruin the perfect, matching, placid family picture. My daughter's beautiful, vibrant difference was a smudge on my mother's curated image. In that moment, staring at my computer screen, a lifetime of being the sensible one, the overlooked one, the independent one, crystallized into a cold, clear point. And I saw, with absolute clarity, the thread that connected my childhood coat to Lily's handmade dress to the insurance login on my screen. I had been paying, in every way, for the privilege of being told we didn't quite belong. I got off the phone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt a terrifying calm. I opened a new browser tab, navigated to my benefits portal, and logged in. The screen loaded with our coverage details: my name, my daughter Lily, and my mother. Her name sat there, a beneficiary of my labor, my loyalty, my silence. My cursor hovered over the Manage Dependents button. The research I'd done months before, just in case, floated back to me. I knew there was a 30-day grace period before cancellation took effect. I knew her prescription refills were due in 2 weeks. I knew the quiet, practical power of what I was about to do. This wasn't a scream. It was the silent click of a lock turning. I selected her name, clicked remove, and confirmed the change. The plan would terminate at the end of the month. Effective date, December 31st. A clean end to the year, a cleaner end to the arrangement. The confirmation screen flashed. Change processed. Just 3 words. I closed my laptop. The room was silent, but my heart was a drum against my ribs. I had just launched a silent missile, and now I had to wait for it to land. There was no immediate explosion, no ringing phone, just the heavy quiet of a decision that couldn't be taken back. I walked into Lily's room. She was asleep, one arm flung over her favorite stuffed dragon, wearing the mismatched pajamas she loved. I smoothed her hair and made a promise to the dark room. I would never let anyone make her feel like a problem to be solved. The next 2 weeks were a study in surreal normalcy. I went to work. I made school lunches. I helped Lily glue sequins onto a cardboard crown. I paid our bills, including my mother's mortgage, as always. The automatic payment went through. I didn't stop it. This wasn't about the house. This was about the line she crossed. The insurance was the leverage I never knew I held, the tangible proof that her comfort depended on my goodwill. And she had spent that goodwill, in one email, on the dream of a matching family photo. I knew the timeline. Her insurance would officially end on December 31st, but the practical effects would hit sooner. Her monthly prescription for blood pressure medication was due for a refill around the 20th. She used a mail-order pharmacy. They would try to process the claim, get a rejection, and then notify her. That was my first expected alert. The waiting was a strange kind of torture. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach flipped. Was this it? The calm before the storm felt like standing in a field, waiting for lightning. Meanwhile, the holiday season marched on around us, my social media filled with other people's perfect pictures. My sister posted a photo of her daughters in those matching plaid dresses, lined up by the fireplace. My mother had commented, "My beautiful girls, the heart of my Christmas." The exclusion was now public, polished, and celebrated. I felt a cold fury so solid I could hold it in my hand. It kept me steady. The first sign came not as a phone call, but as a letter. It arrived at my mother's house, but she forwarded the image to me, confused. It was a routine notice from the insurance company, addressed to me as the policyholder, confirming the dependent removal for Jane Smith effective the last day of the month. She texted me, "Got this weird letter about insurance. Looks like a mistake. Can you fix it?" I stared at the text. The casual assumption, "Can you fix it?" As if I were her customer service representative for life. I wrote back, my fingers steady. "It's not a mistake. I made a change to the plan." I hit send. Then I turned my phone face down and made dinner. The silence lasted 6 hours. Then my screen lit up, not a text, a call. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again, 3 times in 10 minutes. I listened to the first voicemail. Her voice was sharp, bewildered. "What do you mean you made a change? What change? Call me back right now. This isn't funny." I deleted it. The second voicemail was louder. "Are you seriously canceling my insurance over Christmas? Are you out of your mind? Call me." I deleted that one too. The third was just heavy breathing, then a click. This was phase 1. Confusion and anger. She still couldn't truly believe it. I was her sensible daughter. I fixed problems. I didn't create them. This had to be a misunderstanding I would clear up once I stopped being so emotional. She tried my sister next. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister an hour later. "Mom is freaking out. What's going on with her insurance? Did you really cancel it?" I wrote back one word. "Yes." My sister's response was immediate. "You're being a cruel bitch. She needs that for her heart. Call her and fix it." I didn't respond. The word cruel echoed. Was it cruel to stop paying for the comfort of someone who exiled my child? Or was it cruel to exile a child in the first place? The definitions were splitting apart in my hands. The real crisis point hit 2 days later. The mail-order pharmacy called her directly. They couldn't refill the prescription. The coverage was terminated. They told her she owed $270 for a 90-day supply if she wanted it. For my mother, who budgeted every dollar of her Social Security, this was a cataclysm. This was the missile landing. My phone erupted. It started at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was in a work meeting when I felt it vibrate incessantly in my pocket. I ignored it. When I came out, I had 17 missed calls, all from her, and 5 from my sister, and 3 from an unknown number that was probably my mother's landline. The voicemail inbox was full. I stood in the office hallway, leaning against the cool wall, and listened to the first few. The tone had shifted from anger to panic. "You need to call the insurance company right now. My medicine is ready, but they say I'm not covered. Tell them it's an error." Another, "I don't have $270. What am I supposed to do? This is a life-saving medication." Then a quieter, more terrifying one, "Please, I'm your mother." The phrase, "I'm your mother," had always been a trump card. It was the ultimate guilt trip, the final argument that ended every discussion. But this time, it landed flat, because I was also a mother, and her actions had shown me what that title meant to her. It meant control. It meant conformity. It meant the power to include or exclude based on her own narrow image. My motherhood meant protection, even if that protection was quiet and brutal. I didn't call back. I sent a single text message. "The cancellation is not an error. It was a consequence. You told Lily her presence would disrupt the harmony of your Christmas. You chose harmony over your granddaughter. Now you have harmony and no insurance." I blocked her number. Then I blocked my sister's number. The silence that followed was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. But the world isn't so easily silenced. She called my workplace. The receptionist, a sweet older woman named Brenda, came to my desk looking concerned. "Your mother is online too. She says it's an emergency." I felt a hot flush of humiliation. She was dragging the conflict into my professional space, the one arena I had built entirely on my own. I took a deep breath. "Thank you, Brenda. Please tell her I'm in a meeting indefinitely. And if she calls again, you have my permission to say I'm unavailable and hang up." Brenda's eyes widened, but she nodded. She understood more than I said. That's when the siege truly began. The unknown number calls started. She was calling from neighbors' phones, from my aunt's phone, from my elderly uncle's phone. My phone would ring, I'd see my aunt's name, and my heart would sink. I loved my aunt. I answered. "Honey, your mother is here and she's very upset. She says her insurance is canceled and she can't get her pills. Can you two please talk?" I felt trapped. "Aunt Carol, I love you, but I can't discuss this. It's between me and her. Please don't let her use your phone like this." I had to hang up on my kind aunt's confused sputters. The guilt was acid in my throat. She emailed me. Long, rambling emails that swung from venomous accusations to desperate pleas. She called me ungrateful. She listed every sacrifice she'd ever made, most of which were the basic requirements of parenting. She said I was hurting my daughter by teaching her to hold grudges. She said I was destroying the family. In one email, she wrote the line that confirmed every hidden fear I'd ever had. "You've always been too sensitive. You're doing this to hurt me because you know I love your sister's girls more. They're just easier to love." I read that line at my kitchen table, and the world didn't end. It just got very, very clear. She had finally said the quiet part out loud. This wasn't about Lily's clothes. This was about a fundamental hierarchy of love in her heart, and Lily and I were at the bottom. The insurance wasn't the cause of the war. It was just the first piece of armor I decided to take off. The financial reality began to press on her quickly. Without the insurance, a simple doctor's visit for a refill would cost her over $100 out of pocket. The medication was hundreds more. She had no savings. My sister had no money to give. I knew this. I had calculated it. The pressure point wasn't just medical, it was financial terror. She was facing the cliff edge of American healthcare without a net, and the person who had woven that net had cut the cords. A week before Christmas, my doorbell rang. It was a Saturday afternoon. Lily was painting at the kitchen table. I looked through the peephole. It was my sister. She was alone, her arms crossed against the cold, her face pale and set. I considered not answering, but Lily had heard the bell. "Who is it, Mama?" I couldn't hide. I opened the door just enough to step outside, closing it behind me. The cold air hit me like a slap. "We need to talk," my sister said, her breath making clouds in the air. "You're letting her die over a pair of pajamas." The accusation was so blunt, so dramatic, it almost made me laugh. "She's not dying. She needs to find new insurance. The marketplace is open. She can get a plan." "With what money?" my sister spat. "You know she can't afford a premium. You were her premium. This is a death sentence and you're signing it because your kid is weird and can't wear normal clothes for one night." There it was, the family creed. Lily was weird. I was punitive. My sister looked at me, not with understanding, but with the furious confusion of someone who had always been the priority watching the backup system fail. "Do you hate us that much?" she asked, her voice breaking. I looked at her, this stranger I'd grown up with. "I don't hate you," I said, my voice quiet in the frozen air. "I just finally see you, and I'm choosing Lily every time, even if it means you see me as a monster." I went back inside and locked the door. I heard her car door slam, the engine roar away. I leaned against the door, shaking. Lily looked up from her painting. "Who was that, Mama?" "Just someone who doesn't understand our colors, sweetie," I said. She smiled and went back to her work, a swirl of brilliant, clashing purple and orange. A masterpiece. The silence after my sister left was a fragile thing. It lasted 3 days. Then the war left my doorstep and went digital. I opened Facebook on a Wednesday evening. A notification told me I was tagged in a post. It was from my mother. My blood went cold. She had never tagged me in anything before. The post was a long, carefully crafted paragraph. It didn't mention me by name. It didn't mention insurance. It was a masterpiece of vague booking. "It's amazing how the people you sacrifice for can turn on you when you're old and vulnerable," it began. "When you realize family is just a word some people use when they want something. Pray for me during this difficult time of betrayal." It was followed by a cascade of supportive comments from aunts, uncles, old family friends. "Who did this to you? Family is everything, so sorry you're hurting. Some people are just ungrateful. You deserve better." She had taken our private conflict and turned it into a public performance, casting herself as the martyred saint and me as the unnamed villain. The rage was a white-hot wire in my chest. I wanted to comment. I wanted to scream the truth into that comment section. I canceled her health insurance because she told my 7-year-old she wasn't welcome at Christmas. But I knew how that would look. It would seem unhinged. It would prove her point about me being cruel. She had baited a trap, and every fiber of my being wanted to spring it. I did nothing. I didn't comment. I didn't share my side. I simply took a screenshot. Then I went into my settings and made it so I had to approve any tags before they appeared on my timeline. I let her have her stage, but I was learning. This was no longer just about medicine money. This was a campaign to destroy my reputation within our entire family network. She was recruiting an army of guilt. The next volley came via my email, a message from my uncle, my father's brother. Subject line, "Call your mother." The body was short and stern. "Your mother is sick and scared. I don't know what this is about, but as her daughter, you have a responsibility. End this nonsense immediately. Family doesn't do this to family." I stared at the words. This uncle had sent me a $50 check for my graduation. That was the extent of our relationship. Now he was a general in her army. I replied with more restraint than I felt. "Uncle David, I appreciate your concern. This is a private matter between me and my mother, stemming from her decision to exclude my daughter from the family Christmas. I'm handling it as I see fit." I didn't mention the insurance. Let her explain that part. He wrote back 5 minutes later. "A Christmas misunderstanding is no reason to jeopardize your mother's health. Be the bigger person." The bigger person. The eternal directive for the one who was wronged. I closed the email. I was done being bigger. I was choosing to be exact, to be proportional. Then the landscape shifted again. I received a letter in the mail, not to my mother, but to me, official looking from a law firm. My hands shook as I opened it. It wasn't a lawsuit, not yet. It was a formal notice and a demand for reinstatement. A lawyer, probably a friend of a friend doing a favor, had written on her behalf. The letter stated that I had fraudulently removed a dependent from my insurance plan, causing intentional emotional distress and financial harm. It demanded I reinstate her coverage immediately and cover all related costs, or they would pursue all available legal remedies. It cited something about filial responsibility, suggesting I had a legal duty to provide for her. The paper felt like ice in my hands. She had lawyered up. This was the nuclear option in a family conflict. She was trying to scare me, to use the cold language of the law to force me back into my old role. For a moment, the fear was paralyzing. Could she actually sue me? Would I have to go to court? I spent that night in a rabbit hole of online legal forums, my heart pounding. What I found was both a relief and a deeper sadness. In our state, filial responsibility laws were rarely enforced, and almost never for something like health insurance between two competent adults. The letter was a bluff, a scare tactic, but the intent was clear. She wanted to break me. She was willing to threaten me with the legal system to get her safety net back. I didn't call the lawyer, I called my own. A colleague at work recommended a no-nonsense family law attorney named Susan. I sat in Susan's office 2 days later, the letter on her desk. She read it, her expression neutral. "This is intimidation," she said flatly. "It has no legal merit. You have no contractual or legal obligation to provide her with health insurance. You were doing it as a gift. Gifts can be revoked." She advised me to send a cease and desist letter in response, stating that any further legal threats would be considered harassment. "It will probably stop there," Susan said. "But be prepared. When people lose financial leverage, they often escalate emotionally. Is there anything else she might try?" I thought about it. "She has a key to my house," I said quietly. I'd never asked for it back. Susan's gaze sharpened. "Change your locks today." I left her office with a plan and a $2,000 retainer bill. The cost of peace. The cost of holding the line. I drove straight to a hardware store, bought new locks, and installed them myself that evening. As I turned the final screw, I felt like I was fortifying a castle against a siege. My own mother. The emotional toll was starting to leak into the one space I had kept sacred, my time with Lily. She was perceptive. "Mama, are you sad?" she asked me one night at bedtime. I was stroking her hair, my mind a million miles away, replaying the lawyer's threats. "Just a little tired, sweetie," I said. She looked at me with those big, clear eyes. "Is it because of Grandma? Did I make her mad with my star dress?" Her question was a knife to my heart. The poison was reaching her. She was internalizing the blame, just as I had done at her age. I gathered her into a tight hug. "Listen to me, Lily. You did nothing wrong. Your star dress is perfect. Grandma is mad at me, not you, and that's my problem to handle. Your only job is to be exactly who you are." She nodded against my shoulder, but the doubt had been planted. The collateral damage I had feared was beginning. Protecting her meant not just shielding her from exclusion, but from the toxic fallout of the battle itself. Christmas Eve arrived, the day of the harmonious family gathering from which we were excluded. Lily and I started our own tradition. We made pizzas from scratch, shaped like Christmas trees. We watched her favorite movie about a dragon who loved glitter. We wore our most outrageous, mismatched pajamas. We were loud and silly and free. I took pictures, but I didn't post them. This joy was ours alone, not a performance for anyone. As we were brushing our teeth before bed, my phone lit up on the bathroom counter. A text from an unknown number. It was a photo. I almost didn't open it, but I did. It was the family picture. My mother, my sister's husband, and their 2 daughters, all in matching red plaid pajamas, smiling in front of a roaring fire. The perfect, harmonious image. The caption from the unknown number, which I now realized was my sister's husband's phone, read, "See what you're missing." Was it worth it? I stared at the picture, the smiling faces, the curated perfection, and I felt not one pang of longing. I felt pity. This was what they valued, this frozen, matching moment. This was what they had chosen over a real, vibrant, messy little girl. I deleted the photo and blocked the number. I looked at Lily, her mouth foamy with toothpaste, wearing pajamas covered in rainbows and robots. She was real. They were a cardboard cutout of a family. But the text had done its job. It had reopened the wound. That night after Lily was asleep, the doubt crept in. The lawyer's letter, the family's judgment, the sheer exhaustion of holding this line alone, it all pressed down on me. Was I the monster? Was destroying my mother's security too high a price to pay, even for this principle? I lay in the dark, wrestling with the ghost of the sensible daughter I used to be. She was screaming that I had gone too far. That I should just apologize, reinstate the insurance, and make peace. Then I remembered the email, the sentence. "For those with alternative traditions, we understand and will miss you this year." I remembered the look on Lily's face when I had to explain why we weren't going to Grandma's for Christmas. The confusion, then the quiet acceptance. She was 7. She shouldn't have had to accept being erased from a family photo. No, the line I drew wasn't in the wrong place. They just couldn't believe I had drawn it at all. The fallout reached its peak on December 28th. My phone rang. It was the number for my mother's local hospital. My breath stopped. Had something happened? For a terrible second, guilt and fear obliterated all my resolve. I answered, my voice thin. "Hello." It was the billing department. They were calling about an outstanding balance for a wellness visit my mother had in early December, before the cancellation. The claim had been processing when the insurance ended, and now there was a patient responsibility of $85. They were calling me because I was still listed as the guarantor on her file. The relief that it wasn't a medical emergency was instantly replaced by a new, colder understanding. The tentacles of her dependency were everywhere. Even a bill from before my decision was coming to me. "I am no longer the guarantor," I told the woman, my voice surprisingly steady. "You need to contact the patient directly for payment." I gave them my mother's phone number. I hung up, feeling a new kind of strength. This was the administrative reality of my choice. I was untangling myself, line by line, form by form. New Year's Eve, the day the insurance officially terminated, I half expected the sky to fall. It was a quiet day. Lily and I made a fort in the living room. At midnight, we toasted with sparkling apple juice. "To a new year of being us," I said. She clinked her plastic cup against mine. "To more glitter," she declared. On January 2nd, back to the routine of work and school, the final assault began. The 41 missed calls. They started in the morning and continued in a relentless barrage throughout the day. I had unblocked her number after the lawyer letter on my attorney's advice to keep a record of any harassment. Now I watched the screen light up over and over. Call, voicemail, call, voicemail. I didn't answer a single one. I let them pile up, a digital monument to her panic. The voicemails told a story of escalating desperation. The first few were angry demands, then pleading, then sobbing. The final messages were just static and ragged breathing. The pharmacy had refused her prescription. She had tried to go to a clinic for a refill and been told the out-of-pocket cost. She had nowhere to turn. The reality of being medically and financially exposed in America had crashed down on her. The safety net I provided wasn't just a policy, it was her perception of reality, and I had yanked it away. Listening to the last voicemail, a 3-minute recording of her crying, saying she didn't understand why I was doing this, that she was sorry, that she'd buy Lily any dress she wanted, I didn't feel victory. I felt a profound, hollow sorrow. This was the power I never wanted. This was the consequence she never imagined. We were both trapped in a tragedy of her making, but I was the one who had chosen to stop pretending it was a comedy. I saved all the voicemails. I backed them up to the cloud. They were evidence. Evidence of her distress, yes, but also evidence of the cause and effect. A record of the price of exclusion. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a notepad. I wrote down 2 options. 1, reinstate the insurance. The war ends. The family slowly, awkwardly, reknits itself around this silent understanding that my boundaries can be crossed if the price is high enough. Lily learns that love is conditional and that her mother's protection has limits. 2, hold the line. Help her find an alternative. Guide her to the state healthcare marketplace, to patient assistance programs for her medication. Offer a path that isn't dependency, but that isn't abandonment either. A path that requires her to see me not as a provider, but as a person who sets terms. I knew which one the old me would have chosen, the sensible one, the peacekeeper, the bigger person. But the old me was gone. She had been erased slowly over a lifetime of small cuts and finished off by one Christmas email. The woman at the table was someone new. Someone who had looked into the abyss of her family's conditional love and decided to build a bridge across it instead of falling in. The bridge would be narrow, it would have guardrails, and the first step onto it would have to be taken by her. I didn't call her back, not right away. I let the silence after the 41st call stretch for a full 24 hours. I needed her to sit in the quiet, in the reality she had helped create. Then, on the morning of January 4th, I sent an email, not a text. An email because I wanted formality. I wanted a record. The subject line was, "A path forward." I wrote it carefully. I stated facts, not feelings. I confirmed that her health insurance through my employer was terminated and would not be reinstated. I then listed 3 resources: the website for the state health insurance marketplace, the phone number for the pharmaceutical company's patient assistance program for her specific medication, and the contact information for a local senior center that offered benefits counseling. I wrote, "These are the tools available to you. I am willing to help you navigate the paperwork for 1 hour, over the phone, this Saturday morning at 10. The help is conditional on a respectful conversation. The choice to use these resources is yours." I hit send. It was the hardest click of my life. I was offering a hand, but not a net. I was saying, "I will show you how to swim, but I will not carry you." It was the opposite of everything our relationship had ever been. Her response came an hour later, a single line. "You are killing me." I closed my laptop. I had expected rage, negotiation, guilt. This melodramatic sentence just felt tired. It was the last weapon in her arsenal, and it was blunt. She still believed that controlling the narrative of her victimhood would control me. It didn't. Saturday at 10 a.m., my phone rang. The caller ID showed her number. I took a deep breath and answered. "Hello." Her voice was different. Not angry, not pleading. It was flat, exhausted. "I got your email." She sounded old. Truly old in a way I'd never let myself hear before. "I'm here to help with the forms if you want," I said, keeping my tone neutral, professional. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, but the fight was gone. It was a genuine, bewildered question. I chose my words with precision. "Because you excluded my child from your family. Because you told me in 100 ways my whole life that my job was to need nothing from you. I learned that lesson. Now you are learning that independence goes both ways." She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just said, "The website is confusing." So for the next 55 minutes, we navigated the state marketplace website together. I guided her over the phone. "Click on the tab that says individuals and families." "No, not that one. The blue one. Now enter your zip code." It was surreal. We were speaking a new language, the language of bureaucracy, instead of the old language of guilt and obligation. She read questions aloud about her income, her assets. Her voice shook when she said the number of her Social Security check. The reality of her financial fragility, which I had shielded her from by simply paying, was now laid bare between us. She had to face it. We found a plan, a basic, high-deductible plan that was subsidized based on her low income. The premium was $73 a month. She was silent for a moment. "I can manage that," she whispered, more to herself than to me. It was the first time I'd ever heard her calculate a cost she would have to bear herself. We hung up with the application pending. I had kept my promise, 1 hour, no more. I felt drained but clean. I had not abandoned her to the void. I had shown her the door and handed her the key. Whether she walked through, it was up to her. A week later, she called again, just once. She left a voicemail. Her tone was different again, resigned, maybe even a little proud. I got the confirmation. The new insurance starts February 1st. The medicine program approved me for a 3-month supply. It's handled. There was a long silence on the recording. Then, "Thank you for your time last Saturday." Click. "Thank you for your time, not thank you for paying. Not I'm sorry. Not I love you. Thank you for your time." It was the most respectful thing she'd ever said to me. It acknowledged my effort without claiming ownership of it. It was a transaction between two adults. It was heartbreaking, and it was progress. The financial leverage was gone. The crisis was averted, but the relationship was in ruins. The family ecosystem had been scorched. My sister didn't speak to me for months. Family gatherings happened without us. The matching pajama photos continued, a closed loop I was no longer part of. The silence from that side of my life was vast. Some days it felt like freedom. Some nights it felt like amputation. I focused on building a new family culture with Lily. We had Fabulous Friday, where we wore our wildest outfits to the grocery store. We started a garden, planting seeds in chaotic, colorful patterns. Our home was loud, messy, and full of unconditional acceptance. I was determined that the word different would never be a weapon in her world. It would be a celebration. Then in the spring, the surprising detail. The one I never saw coming. A small package arrived in the mail addressed to Lily. The return address was my mother's. My guard shot up. I opened it carefully. Inside was not a gift card or a store-bought dress. It was a length of fabric. It was a beautiful, vibrant jumble of colors, swirls of deep blue and emerald green and little specks of gold. Tucked into the fold was a note in my mother's careful handwriting. It read, "For your next creation. I saw this and thought of you. Love, Grandma." There was no apology, no mention of Christmas or insurance, just fabric and the word creation. Not costume, not outfit, creation. Lily was thrilled. "Grandma sent me stars and oceans," she exclaimed, holding the fabric to her face. I was stunned. It was a flag of truce in the only language my daughter spoke. It was an acknowledgement, however small, of who Lily was. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a repaired bridge. It was a single, fragile plank laid across a wide river. We could choose to step on it or not. I never told Lily to thank her. I never prompted a response. A week later, Lily asked if she could mail Grandma a picture. She drew a detailed illustration of a dragon wearing a cape made of the fabric, flying over a house. She wrote at the top, "Thank you for the sky fabric. Love, Lily." I mailed it. No response came, and that was okay. The gesture wasn't about starting a correspondence. It was about altering the gravitational pull between us. The old gravity was based on duty and criticism. This new, tiny force was based on recognition. It was enough. The lawyer's threats never materialized. The family gossip eventually moved on to other dramas. My mother and I now have a relationship that exists in a narrow, carefully defined space. We talk briefly every few weeks. We discuss the weather, her garden, Lily's latest project. We do not discuss the past. We do not make plans for holidays. It is a relationship with borders. It is not warm, but it is respectful. It is what is possible. And me, I learned the weight of the power I held all along. I learned that no is a complete sentence. I learned that protecting my child sometimes means drawing a line so bright it burns everything on the other side, even things you used to love. I am no longer the sensible daughter. I am the mother who moved a mountain so her daughter wouldn't have to climb it. The mountain was made of guilt and obligation and the desperate need for a love that was always conditional. The 41 missed calls are still saved in a folder on my computer. I listen to them sometimes, not to feel pain, but to remember my own strength. To remember that in the face of that tidal wave of pressure, I did not bend. I built a dam. And behind that dam, my daughter gets to grow up in a world where her spark is cherished, not extinguished. The cost was high. The peace, however, is real. It is the quiet of a home where no one is waiting for a rejection that never comes. It is the sound of my daughter's laughter, unself-conscious and free. It is the knowledge that the love I give and receive within these walls is without price, without condition, without a dress code. This is where the story turns, not with a dramatic reunion or a tearful apology, but with a quiet, sustained choice. The choice to accept a limited relationship over a toxic one. The choice to value peace over permission. The choice to end a cycle, even if it means you become the villain in someone else's story. Because in your own story, in the story you are building with your own 2 hands and your own fierce heart, you finally get to be the hero. So what is this story, really? It's not a blueprint for revenge. It's a map of a fault line. The fault line that runs through so many families, where love gets tangled with control, where support comes with invisible strings, and where the person who has always been the steady rock realizes they have the power to cause an earthquake. My mother saw my practicality as a convenience. She never saw it as power until I used it, and I never wanted that power until she forced my hand. We talk about family as this immutable thing, a bond that transcends everything. But sometimes, family is the first place we learn how love can be conditional, how acceptance can have a dress code, how you can be valued for what you provide, not for who you are. And when you have a child of your own, that calculus changes forever. You look at that small, trusting face and you realize, I will burn every bridge, I will shatter every expectation, I will become the villain in every other story to make sure you never have to calculate your own worth. What I did was extreme. Canceling a parent's health insurance is the nuclear option. But it wasn't my first option. It was my last. It was the response to a lifetime of smaller cuts, culminating in the cut that finally went too deep, the cut aimed at my child. This is the modern, messy reality of intergenerational families. Adult children aren't just kids anymore. They're often the keepers of the keys to technology, to finances, to healthcare access. And with that keeping comes a terrible, clarifying power. This story is about what happens when the safety net becomes a weapon. But more importantly, it's about what happens after. The hard, unglamorous work of building something new from the rubble. Not a perfect reconciliation, but a respectful distance. Not a grand apology, but a single length of fabric sent in the mail. It's about learning that sometimes the healthiest form of love is a boundary. And that the most powerful thing you can build for your child isn't a fortress to keep the world out, but a compass to help them navigate it, no matter how strange or colorful their path may be. If you are holding a similar line right now, if you are facing the pressure to shrink yourself or your child to fit someone else's narrow picture, know this. Your peace is worth protecting. Your child's spirit is worth fighting for. The cost of that fight may be high, but the cost of surrender, the slow erosion of a soul, is infinitely higher. You are not alone in this. Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, if you've ever stood at a similar crossroads, share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me where you're from. Let's build a community that understands that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who make you feel seen, not scrutinized, who celebrate your colors instead of asking you to mute them. Subscribe for more stories about navigating the complicated geography of the heart, about drawing lines, crossing bridges, and building a home that fits who you actually are. I'll see you in the next one.